Kels, welcome to the podcast, brother.
Well, thanks for having me, brother. Can't wait.
Yep, and I always love having centers on here. There's just a natural connection. I don't know if it's the personality traits that it requires to play the center position, combined with the fact that most offensive line are cut from the same cloth. But you haven't always been a center, and your career journey is just fascinating to me. Tell the listeners about at what point did you switch to the center position?
Yeah, I switched right after my redshirt freshman year in that spring. I was recruited as a walk-on coming out of college. I was a linebacker and a running back. And I got to college.
Were you 6'3" at the time?
I was 6'3", well, 6'2" and 5/8. I found out at the combine, but yeah, right. 6'3", and about 225, 230 pounds.
Wow.
And Mark D'Antonio was the head coach of Cincinnati, and he was the one who recruited me. That first year, I did all scout team that year, linebacker, and thought I was doing pretty good. And then he up and left and went to Michigan State, and then came Brian Kelly. And along with Brian Kelly came a little bit different offense. Before that, with Mark, we ran a much more pro style, like kind of big hog mollies up front, running power and duo. And, it wasn't, the spread fast paced thing that Brian brought. And he wanted a lot more zone read, outside zone concepts, shotgun formations, and, truly a spread offense. So they wanted more athletic, quicker offensive linemen. And there was a guy on his staff at the time, the strength coach, Paul Longo, who really had done this with a number of guys before when he was at Iowa and with Brian at Central Michigan. He actually did the same thing with Joe Staley, who started off as a tight end there. And Paul told me, like, right away in offseason, I should have read the writing on the wall. He's like, Kelce, you'd make a really good center. And I'm like, man, what are you talking about? Like, it was just really in passing. And then sure enough, about 3 or 4 days into spring ball, coincidentally, when it was only, like, it was still helmets, so it's all passing game, and I was a downhill linebacker. If there's ever been one, that's all I was really good at. And they told me, hey, we're going to try out at center for the rest of spring. And the rest is history. I mean, I played guard the first couple years that I started. We had another center who's a little bit older than me, who our best five was just me at guard, and then I played center my senior year. And so I put about 20 pounds on every year. So that first year I started like 260.
Wow.
Then I went up to 280. Then my last year at guard, I was actually 300, 305. Might be the heaviest I've ever been, really. And then my last year I went back down to about 285, 280. So, and I've been right about 290 for most of my career.
Yeah, that's wild to me. There's something about playing guard that makes you feel like you need to be bigger than you are as a center. I know my rookie year, I played about 315, broke my leg in half, never got to be 315 pounds again, but always tried to get to that 305, 310 range again. But it was always a struggle trying to keep the weight on throughout the league. My junior year of high school, I was 6'4", 205 pounds. So I did it a little bit earlier than you, but I rushed to put the weight on to transition to offensive line. At some point in most offensive linemen's life, you get told, hey, you're not going to have the ball in your hands anymore, except for the center. You start with it every play, most important position in football. But that being said, is it easy for you to keep the weight on now, or is it still a struggle?
It's gotten way easier, and I don't know if that's good for post-career. I don't know what's going to happen. But when I was, throughout college and throughout the first part of my career, really up until about 30 years old, I had to eat a lot and really push to keep my weight on, especially throughout the season, right? Like the off season, it's really easy to maintain like a regimented diet, and then once you're in the middle of the season and you're worn out, you're done, you're tired, and then you're trying to make sure you're consuming all the calories, and you're trying to maintain your strength. That was difficult to do. So I would always start my off season. I would tell myself, I want to start at 295, knowing I was going to slowly work down throughout the season.
Right.
I knew that if I would have started at 280 or 285, I'd be 270 in the middle of the season. That wouldn't go over well. So I needed to start high and let that come down. Now it's pretty easy to stay about 295, 300.
What's the lightest you played in a game for the Eagles?
Man, with Chip Kelly, I played a couple games for sure in the 270s
Wow.
because it was a different offense and it, so fast paced, and our practices were it was all running. And I think when I got on the scale, I was 280 because
Right.
I didn't want to psychologically know that I was under 280. But if I would have gotten completely naked without eating breakfast and everything like that, I would have been for sure in the 270s.
Yeah, with the Bills, we always weighed in on Fridays. They set the scale right when you walk in the door. So unless you ate breakfast at home, you were weighing in first thing in the morning. Well, I would chug water on Friday morning. Thursday night, me and my wife would make date night just so we knew we'd get a big meal in that night. And
Right.
I'm the exact same way. Like I wanted to weigh 310 on Friday mornings or 30, somewhere between 305 and 310, but I probably played closer to 300. I just want to ask you, since he came up with Chip Kelly, it was fascinating to me, and I thought he brought a lot of good things to the table, especially with the practice schedule during the week, just mixing it up. Like we don't have to wait on game film to be delivered anymore. So Tuesday doesn't have to be a day off like it did in the old days. So let's maybe mix some things up. But in your opinion, if given another shot, can Chip Kelly be a successful coach in the NFL?
Oh, I completely think he can be.
And I say that he wasn't a disaster. He just put the norm, and he didn't have enough success that everyone just gets so uncomfortable when it's not done the same way.
Yeah, when you're pushing the envelope and trying to be as cutting edge as he was, you have to be very successful. You can't just be kind of middle of the road, which ultimately ended up happening towards the end of his career in Philly and then in San Fran. I think Chip, in a lot of ways, changed much of the NFL for the better. We still do a lot of the things and stole a lot of the things that Chip Kelly and other college coaches have done. The RPO is like a standard thing now. And at that time, it really wasn't as popular. Chip was kind of new with that. The zone reads have, taken off. The no huddle offenses, seems like every team now has at least a package of no huddle plays going into a game. So there were some unbelievably creative and good things that Chip did. And in some ways, he was a genius for kind of coming up with all that. And I think knowing and who he is and having learned from the things that haven't gone right, I think Chip would do a phenomenal job. And he gets a bad rap for kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Lacking a little bit of the connection with the players because it ended bad in Philly. And I don't know how it ended in San Fran, but I think a lot of that comes down to like the structure of communication. I think he's probably learned a lot, and I still have a ton of respect for him as a coach and as a innovator. And I think you do a great job. I really do.
Yeah, and I hope he gets another shot. He's a guy that I've connected with over the years. We have the same age, and so I've seen him a lot of places. We see eye to eye on a number of things when it comes to just pushing the needle, try some things outside the box. I appreciate some of his new school approach to training and practice schedule. And he's not the coach that makes fun of you for using a foam roller pregame telling you you're soft. He's the guy that's looking at exhausting any possible option to get the most out of his players, most out of his team. So I always appreciate that about him.
100%. And everything you do, there's going to be a why behind it. He's going to communicate it to you. I feel like I grew a lot as a player and as in my preparation for the game, both mentally as a player, physically as a player, and then nutritionally as a player, right? I made more progress in all of those facets with Chip Kelly than I probably made with any other coach. I think, I really do think the world of Chip. And I know, it didn't end well for him in Philly, but I think he would do a great job if he got another opportunity in the league. And it seems like he's turning things around at UCLA right now too.
Yeah,
this year.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. And this kind of leads me into what I was going to ask you next anyways. So you've started you've played in 122 straight games for the Eagles, which is wild. And this isn't, this is, okay. So besides luck, what do you think contributes to that? And I say that I don't expect you to give the answer Joe Thomas gave on the podcast when he said that he got this bone density study done, and he actually has like this freakishly high bone density that really doesn't allow him to break bones, which is wild. We made jokes about him being from Wisconsin and all that, but
yeah.
What would you credit besides luck? Because there's a certain element of luck in that. Besides luck of not at the wrong time getting your legs falling on, what would you consider that to come from that streak?
Well, I think a lot of it is luck, and I know we're not counting that. I think that there's a number of reasons. Probably, I think we've been predominantly a zone team, and I think zone plays just in general, and when everybody's moving on the same path, there's less likely chances that people are going to get torqued and thrown down on your legs. Because let's face it, and I mean, you know this full well, like the vast majority of these big time injuries are when you're engaged and somebody kind of just piles down into your leg, right?
Right.
And that mostly happens in, gap scheme, powers, pin and pull. Well, not even pin and pull, more just your straight gap schemes. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think that is probably a big part of it. Another part is I think being undersized, I have to keep my feet moving. Like there's not really a lot of times where I'm just standing there and engaged. And so I think both of those two things compile, and I've been lucky. Now I blew my knee out against the Baltimore Ravens. Ed Reed tried to tackle LaShawn McCoy, both of our former teammate, and Shady made him miss, and I was out in the open, like running, and it just was at the right time. So the game is, a lot of it comes down to luck, as you know, but I think those two things would probably be the biggest factors outside of that.
Yeah.
Keeping my feet moving. And then also you just see less of it in zone scheme systems, I feel like.
Yeah. What was the closest game you were to missing during that streak? Because I know there was times you were playing through some pretty serious stuff.
Yeah. All right. Let me try and remember. So I've missed some time. I haven't missed too many starts.
Right.
There was a close one in Detroit in 2000 and maybe 15, where I had a ruptured bursa sac, and which doesn't sound like much, but for some reason it was like right on my nerve, so I couldn't bend down and get into a stance without like shooting pain, and my quad would shut down. So we worked on some things, and I just asked the guys, I was like, hey, is there any way we can, find a way to get this thing right? And worked some pregame magic, and all of a sudden I went out there for him. I was like, all right, I'm ready to go now. But hadn't practiced all week. I didn't think it was going to happen, and I went out there for him. I just felt brand new, and we still lost, but I played the game. Yeah. And then
I was going into the 2016 season and didn't feel great. My right knee was giving me some problems through training camp. So they went to put a PRP shot in there the day after our last preseason game, thinking, hey, we got 10 days off before the opener.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do a PRP injection. That'll make everything feel good. Well, the doctor popped my bursa sac with the PRP injection. So for the first 5 weeks of the season, I'm getting my knee drained the day before the day of the game or the day of the game, just so I can get my quad firing again.
Yeah.
So I can relate to the bursa sac deal. Now, it wasn't on the nerve. So when I got into a stance, it just felt like extreme tightness.
Pressure.
Like it just felt like my knee, like the skin over the top of my kneecap was going to explode because there was way too much fluid in there. But
that's it.
It wasn't on the nerve. So it wasn't technically that bad.
Yeah. And I guess some other ones, I've had some, little like grade 1, like MCLs and things like that. I had a grade 2 technically, but it was like a really maybe a little bit less, like ankle sprain. So there's always something, you know what I mean? But nothing really major that I can really pinpoint right now.
This isn't going to come natural for you because I know you're not looking to come on here and brag on yourself much, but you enter college as a walk-on, you enter the league as a 6th-round pick, and now you're likely a Hall of Famer. And so you mentioned earlier your preparation, your nutrition. So I know you're a type of guy that does all the little things, but if you had to talk about just one thing, and this is mainly to give advice out there and not sit here and brag on yourself.
Yeah.
But if you could think of one, maybe 2 things that allowed you to have that type of career trajectory of success, what would you credit it to?
Man, that's tough. I think one of the most important criteria for any player to reach their potential is to really understand and have an accurate self-awareness and self-assessment. I think I've always fully understood my weaknesses, my strengths, what I need to do to get better. I don't lie to myself, and I don't think I'm better than I am, right? And I think that that's allowed me to continue to improve and to continue to get better. I think that mindset, I said this too before, where I think to be really good in the NFL, you need to kind of be, I don't want to say insecure, but you got to believe that you're not good enough.
Right.
But also believe that you're good enough to get there. You know what I mean? And
100%.
It's this interesting dynamic of, if you think you're too good, you're not going to be improving or getting any better. And if you think you can't get there, or you're not going to achieve that, then you're never going to make it happen. So you have to be in this like middle realm of like knowing what you need to get better at and where you're weak at and what you're good at and how to maximize that or get better at your deficiencies. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've seen with most players that reach potential or guys that fall short of it. And then too, I mean, I'm not trying to brag on myself. What's another piece of advice would just, yes, and it kind of goes on to my last thing, but one of the biggest things that I got when I was a young high school kid from my grandfather was just this like quote from Calvin Coolidge on persistence. And it kind of, for whatever reason at the right time hit me square in the face. And it was a realization that, just because you're not where you're at today doesn't mean you can't be where you want to be at tomorrow. And really the mark of what we all end up becoming is going to be, it's a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. Like your life's work or what your career or who you are is an ongoing process that's not really stopping. And these guys that are persistent, that's how, greatness is achieved. That's how success is revealed. You just keep going, just each and every day, trying to improve, trying to get better, trying to get smarter. It's just kind of something that I've taken on, and I think is, a big separator of, because I play with high school guys that I think were way more athletic than me.
Me too.
I play with college guys that I'm like, man, I can't believe that guy didn't make it. And part of it is, stupid mistakes, unfortunate injuries that derail careers or futures. But a lot of it is also just, not having the fortitude to continue to work and continue to, try to, make it. And so, yeah, I guess that's a long-winded way of that.
No, that was absolutely perfect. And for those that tune in each and every week for the personal development lessons, and they were a little tuned out by maybe two football guys talking some ball to start. What you just said, and I don't prep the guests with topics because I want this to be more organic and conversational.
Yeah.
But what you just said, you need to package into to talks when you're done playing, and it's the combination of humility and confidence, and that's no matter what line of work you're in. That's being a dad and a husband. That's being anything in life, is a combination of humility, knowing that there's areas I can improve, but the confidence to say, look, I'm still the best man for the job. I'm still the best man to show up here today. And it takes a certain self-awareness. And in football, we're given that self-awareness daily, and people help us with that self-awareness. It becomes dangerous when you're not in pro sports, where every step you take on a football field isn't analyzed. Every rep you take
Sure.
isn't analyzed. And then I love your second part, because I often say that people will overestimate what they can do in a day or a week improvement wise, but way underestimate what they can do in years.
Yeah.
So if you took those first reps you had as a guard at the University of Cincinnati and compare that to where you're at finishing year 11 in the NFL, there's going to be a huge difference. But if you would have sat there early on in your career at Cincinnati, sitting there as a guard and say, well, that just seems so unattainable. Well, you take that advice from your grandpa and you just continue to get better. And then you grab opportunities. There's some luck along the way. And I say luck, you prepared yourself to run with those opportunities. But man, that was a lot of gold. And I loved exactly where you went with that. That was awesome. And you're going to you need to package that and talk to rookies. And I know you've been doing, I've read about how much you've enjoyed mentoring. And towards the end of my career, that's one of the things that filled my cup up, was no longer hazing the rookies. It was becoming buddies with the rookies and seeing who I could take, like a Deion Dawkins, the left tackle for the Bills. I mean, I still call him my little brother, but having a guy like that still, when I go to practice, he comes up and bear hugs me and talks about the impact that I had on his career. You kind of shift that mindset at some point. Is that mentoring, like where you're at now in your career, is that part of the reason you decided to come back for your 12th season?
I don't know. I don't think so, because I think, I think I still want to play football. That's why I came back for my 12th year. But I certainly love mentoring and trying to help out young players. And I just, it's, mentoring is like, it's a weird word for like a teammate, because like I'm older than a lot of these guys, right? And I've played a lot more football. Like we just drafted a rookie center this year, who I think the world of, man. I think he's going to be a great player. And like I am mentoring him, right? I'm trying to help him become better and everything, but I'm still his teammate. Like I'm not in a role of like an authoritative figure. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely.
And like at the end of the day, as teammates, our jobs are to make each other better. And so in some ways, I feel like my job hasn't changed. I think what's changed is the dynamic of the amount of credibility and leadership that I'm like given like right away, right? Like it's like almost like, I mean, I had to work when I was young in my career to get that level of credibility. And now it's, I still got to work, otherwise it'll fall away. But, these guys already like are asking questions, like the moment they get through the door, and really open to just trying to like take in as much from me as they can. So I think, I've always tried to help guys out, but the dynamic is definitely different now, being later in my career, and I have more of an opportunity to do that. And one of the reasons I think it's like you later in your career, and for me later in my career, it's important, is this is the only way we can leave on our legacy, right? Like
Right.
at the end of the day, you're going to have the outstanding tape of when you play with the Buffalo Bills. I'll have my tape, but that's going to be in the past, right? And how you influenced and, passed on your game and your knowledge and everything to Dan Dawkins. That's what I want to do with my guys. And I can know that, man, I had an impact on that kid. Like, that's how I lived on in this career. And then hopefully, I impacted him, he can impact the next guy. And it just kind of goes on into perpetuity. And that's what it's about, man.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a ton of sense. Earlier in your career, was there an offensive lineman with the Eagles or another center around the league that you looked up to or studied to kind of help you on your journey?
There were two centers that I looked at a lot. Obviously, Jeff Saturday was one of the premier guys and a similar size as me.
Yeah.
And I got the fortune of talking to him because my offensive line coach, when I first got to Philly, Howard Mudd, had coached him for a long time. So I was able to go to his house and kind of pick his brain a little bit. Marquise Poundsy was really young and had an unbelievable start to his career.
Yep.
So I watched a lot of his tape. Olin Kreutz.
I loved watching Olin Kreutz tape.
I know, man. He's a very, to people that watched him and really know him, and he was a violent, physical. He was undersized, but he just played the game so vicious, and I loved watching him play. And then a little bit of Dominic Raiola too. I watched a lot of the undersized guys because I knew that's where I was going to get most of my tricks and kind of techniques from. And then with the Eagles specifically, we had a couple older guys that took to me. Right, Evan Mathis was kind of a career journeyman, had been a lot of places, and we both were coming to Philly at the same time, so we kind of hitched up really quickly. Todd Harrimans, who had been with Philly for a long time, was a great mentor for me early in my career, both on and off the field. He was just a great guy, great teammate. Jamal Jackson was an incumbent center who worked with me my whole rookie year. So yeah, I had great, mentors and leaders, and then guys that I kind of really looked to emulate my game after.
Yeah, that's one of the most impressive answers with the amount of people that you're willing to give credit to that you looked up to, studied. And that's a big reason why you're sitting exactly where you're at right now. Evan Mathis was likely the most jacked offensive lineman, like physically in the best shape. Now that he's done playing, he's got to be in incredible shape. I haven't seen a picture of him. He's just got to be ripped.
He is. And he was at my bachelor party about 5 years ago and was jacked. And then I saw him recently last year with his new wife, and he was skinny, man. He had lost some weight, but he was still he's never not going to be jacked, but he had lost some weight. So, but he's one of those guys that I don't think you'll ever see him not cut up or shredded. Yeah.
Yeah. Who's the toughest type of defensive tackle for you to go against?
Man. Guys that have power and speed.
Yeah.
And, outside of that, every, D line and kind of defensive technique has things that you can take advantage of. When there's a big guy who's athletic over top of me, that's a tough matchup for me. Right. But even big guys, I can get up underneath,
right,
and use leverage. So really, probably the guys that I've struggled with the most, ironically, are guys that are shorter than me and heavier than me. Because it's like, man, I can't get leverage on this guy. He's got longer arms than me, and he's heavier than me. I'm like, man, these are three things that I can't fall back on any of them. So. Yeah, those are, for some reason, those squattier D tackles that are still heavy with long arms are just hard guys to move, and they're hard guys to get leverage on.
Oh,
So I've struggled with a few guys like that.
Yeah, I'm the exact same way. I remember when I first got to the Bills, we had Kyle Williams on one side and Marcus Stroud on the other. And everyone looked at Marcus Stroud at 6'7", 350 pounds. He could run, he could jump. He's strong, he's athletic. But then Kyle on the other side was just a little bit shorter than me. He's mean as a bulldog. He's quick, he's smart. And I couldn't get under him to move him. He's stronger than I am. And that dude was a nightmare to go against compared to Stroud. And the eyeball test would have never given you that answer.
Well, yeah, the eyeball test wouldn't, but the game film test does. Kyle was one of the best defensive tackles in the league for a long time. I mean, he was one of those, him and Gino, and trying to think of those other guys that were kind of a little bit shorter. That man, it was like trying to move a boulder, and then they were smart and savvy and pass pro as well.
When I look at like Reader nowadays, he looks like
Yeah,
he'd be a monster to go against. Damon Harrison he was playing for the Jets. We were always going against him, and he was like
yep,
6'2" ish, about
yeah.
350 pounds.
Long arms and heavy. Yeah, I played a lot against him, and when he went to the Giants after the Jets, and when he was at his best, he was probably the best between him and Limbaugh, which is a completely different style than what we're talking about. But those two guys are two of the best run defenders I've played against, because they're smart and just, they had a lot of tools as well.
Yeah. So I got this podcast about you, but I want to ask one question about you and your brother. So your brother is one of the greatest tight ends in NFL history. I already mentioned. I think you'll be a Hall of Famer one day. So when you look at that, you got two Hall of Fame brothers. You guys don't look that much alike. He's a tight end. You're a center.
Yeah.
Talk about, and you can look on Instagram or social media to find the differences in personalities. But what are the similarities between the two of you guys?
Oh man. I think, this is a good question, because I do think we're more similar than people realize. I think we're very drastically different in our, materialistic or, I don't know, outward expressions, right? But I think
you're not going to get a reality dating show anytime soon.
I don't think so. Yeah. No,
and wife wouldn't approve of that.
I'm probably listening to a little bit more Willie Nelson, and my brother's probably listening to something else. But I think, we are very similar in our values and what we think is right and wrong. I think my brother and I both really have are empathetic people, and I think we're good members of a team, and we operate in a similar manner, even though it might not come across the same way. I think we both try to serve our teammates and make those around us better, and I think that transitions off the field as well. I think it's just kind of who our parents were, and how we were raised. Might kind of look different, but I think at the end of the day, we both, share the same set of values and same set of, core beliefs about humanity. And even though we've never really expressed them, I just think it kind of comes natural to both of us the same way.
Yeah, that's really cool. And that doesn't surprise me to hear you say that. And, he's so loved in Kansas City. You're so loved in Philadelphia. There's extremely positive, similar qualities. And I like how you express that. All right, we got a few recurring questions and we'll get you out of here. Do you have a favorite book?
Well, man, I try to read a lot of books, and I don't read as many as I should. I will say, growing up, I was a big Harry Potter fan, and I've read all of them. Always loved Harry Potter. But I probably would say Old Man and the Sea is probably my favorite. We talked about perseverance in that tale of like trying to fight that marlin for days on end in a little rickety boat. Is something that just kind of, you can almost feel it while you're reading it, what he's going through. And I've always loved that book.
Are you a man of faith?
I am a man of faith, but not a man of religion.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm not, trying to, push any type of whatever. But no, I love talking to guys that have faith, guys that are extremely religious, guys that have, whatever that comes in. those are discussions that I've really enjoyed, whether it's, guys like Carson Wentz, who's extremely religious, Stefan Wisniewski, my line mate, Isaac Seumalo. I really do enjoy talking about what faith in a higher being, what faith in yourself, what service and humility brings to people. These are things that I think are extremely important tenets that seem to be, falling by the wayside more and more. But I love having those conversations.
What was your first car?
First car I bought or first car that I drove?
Both.
First car I drove was a maroon Dodge Caravan
Nice.
minivan. Or actually it was a green Dodge Caravan minivan. And then the power steering went off on that. I had to go to the maroon because it shot its load. It was done. And then first car I bought was a Ford F-150.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's your favorite restaurant?
If we're going like a national chain, God, that's tough.
It doesn't have to be. It could be Philly,
Well,
Cleveland.
Hey, yeah, let me, favorite restaurant. I'm a diner guy. I like any type of diner. So I'm kind of inclined to say that. Okay, I'll go this way. Any kind of diner. There's one in particular in Havertown Grill that I like a lot, which is where I live in Philly. There's one back home in Cleveland, Irv's, which is like a little hole in the wall that we used to go to, and I still love going there. And then if we're going national chain diner, it's hard to beat a Waffle House, in my opinion. But and then our favorite spot to go in the city of Philadelphia is Tallulah's Garden, which is I don't even know how you would describe it, but it's a nice restaurant that my wife and I love going to.
Good deal. What's the best cheesesteak in Philly?
I'm partial to Tony Luke's. My wife, who is she would call herself a true Philadelphian, she likes D'Alessandro's. But to be honest, I can't say it. I love Penn Station in Cincinnati. Those cheesesteaks are so good.
Their fries are killer too.
Yeah.
Now, I will admit that there was more than one time that I had cheesesteaks in Philadelphia. Generally, we try to save them for after the game, but we played in the preseason there one time, and I ate one, I think the day of the game, which was like the world's worst decision. Did you ever eat chicken wings at Buffalo when you were playing there?
You know what? I haven't. And we have we got a young player right now. He was just over my house, a young guard that played at Buffalo, Coyote Abosika. And he was just telling me about how good the wings are in Buffalo and how nobody else is even close. So that's one thing that's a bucket list item for me. I still have not had Buffalo wings.
All right. Well, we're gonna change that at some point. All right.
All right.
Last one for me. This is what's next with Eric Wood. What's next for Jason Kelce? What's coming down the line for you? What do you guys got planned this summer pre-training camp?
Man, obviously I'm going to be preparing for the season like always. But I got a few things on my plate right now. I'm starting a foundation that's close to up and running. And that's been a long process, over a year now that we've been working on that. I've been getting more and more active in real estate and investing in real estate. And then, my daughter's about to start ice skating lessons. So that's the other thing. I can't wait to see her out there on the ice.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, enjoy all those things. And brother, I can't thank you enough for your time. You're someone, honestly, you came in the league just after me and someone I looked up to. I loved watching you play. As the Bills got more new age in our offense, you became a center that I constantly was looking at, especially the way you pulled, the way you moved off the line on the zone schemes. Someone I loved studying. So, brother, I can't thank you enough for your time. Have an incredible season. There's no way we jinxed the consecutive game streak today. And I'll be following along closely this year. And let's do it again next year.
Hey, absolutely. Anytime, Wood. I just want to say before I head off that, you're still one of the guys that I say is one of the best centers I've ever watched. And I know you had a lot of injuries and things go wrong, but man, you were such a great combination of athleticism, size, quickness, smarts. You were a blast to watch. So anytime you want me on, I'm here, brother.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks, brother.